What if Deku stayed quirkless? Chapter 2. Deku stormed away. He was angry. He couldn't do anything against the sludge villain. He saw Bakugo again, and then All Might had the guts to offer him his power just as after he crushed his dreams. Deku punched a wall, splintering the brick. "Damn it!" yelled Deku. Deku closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. "I need to calm down. I'll prove everyone wrong," said Deku. Deku got home and slammed his bedroom door shut behind him. "I've got to train harder, and there has to be something I can use to counter those type of villains," Deku said. Deku rolled onto the floor and began doing press-ups. "I'll see if Iida wants to meet up and train outside of school. We can train down by the beach." Deku finished off his set, then jumped to his feet. He walked over to his punching bag and began to train. "I won't be weak again." "Never," said Deku. The next day, Deku walked into class. He was still angry about yesterday, but he had gained more control. "Midoriya, are you okay? You look a little rough," said Iida. Deku turned to him. "I'm fine. I've just got more drive," said Deku. "What does that even mean?" said Iida internally. "We should train outside of school. You said you want to get in UA like your brother, right? Well, then you better keep up," said Deku. Iida smiled, putting his hand on Deku's shoulder. "I'd like that," said Iida. "Okay, let's go to the beach after school. Will probably be a good place to train," said Deku. At that moment, Suki ran over, holding her phone. "Midoriya, are you okay? I saw what happened with the villain on the news," said Suki. She held out her phone and played the video of Deku pulling Bakugo out, dodging the villain's attack and then All Might showing up. "I'm fine," said Deku. Deku walked off and sat at his desk. Suki looked at Iida confused, and Iida simply shrugged in confusion. After that day ended, Deku and Iida walked down to the beach and began their training. They arrived to see it covered in trash. "What happened here? When I was a kid this beach was beautiful, but now it's a tip," said Deku. Where should we go then?" said Iida. Deku was about to respond when he was cut off by someone talking behind him. "Young Midoriya? What are you doing here?" asked All Might. Deku turned to see All Might in his buff form. "What the? Are you just following me or something?" asked Deku. Iida looked at Deku, shocked that he would say something so rude to All Might. "It's not like that. I'm simply here by coincidence." "Whatever," said Deku. Deku began walking off, but All Might stopped him. "Please, reconsider my offer. It would be amazing for you," said All Might. Deku gritted his teeth and turned, exploding at All Might. "I don't want your bloody quirk! You don't get to crush my dreams, then expect me to become your sidekick." Deku turned back around, storming off a few meters. All Might lowered his head, then got down on the ground, bowing to Deku. "Young man, I'm sorry for what I said. When I said that, I was trying to protect you from the pain of being a hero. But when I saw you save young Bakugo, I knew that you would try and become a pro hero with a quirk or without. That is why I chose you. I knew that I couldn't stop you, so I wanted to make sure that someone with your drive to save people became a mighty hero," said All Might. Deku stopped walking away, turning back to All Might. He saw the massive man bowing to him and a very confused Iida. "I need some time to think. I'll be back in a minute," said Deku. Deku jumped over the barrier to the beach and walked away. "What was that all about?" said Iida. All Might's eyes went wide. They'd been talking about his quirks very openly. "What's your name, son?" asked All Might. "Tenya Iida, sir," said Iida. "Iida, huh? You aren't related to Ingenium, are you?" asked All Might. "He's my elder brother," said Iida. "Ah, I see. He's a good guy. We have only spoken a few times, but he does good work," said All Might. Iida smiled. The symbol of peace was praising his brother. "Sir, if you wouldn't mind me asking, what was Midoriya talking about when he said you wanted to give him your quirk?" asked Iida. All Might froze. "Ah, yes. I guess I don't have a choice." All Might sighed. "I have the ability to pass on my power to another," said All Might. Iida's jaw dropped. He had never heard of anything like that, and to think Midoriya turned it down? "Oh, wow," said Iida. The two talked back and forth for a few minutes until Deku came back. "You alright?" asked Iida. "Yeah, I'm okay." "All Might, I'm sorry I yelled at you, but the answer is still no," said Deku. All Might lowered his head. "I understand," said All Might. "But there is someone I think will be a better fit. His heart is just as heroic, and he has a powerful quirk," said Deku. "Who would that be?" asked All Might. Deku pointed towards Iida, Who, me? asked Iida. No one works harder than him to be the best, said Deku. All Might turned to Iida. I think you're right. What do you say, young Iida? Said All Might. Iida was very confused. Sure thing, said Iida. All Might smiled, getting to his feet. You will need to train so that you are strong enough to handle my power. I'm fine with that. We came down here to train anyway, said Iida. All Might smiled, patting Iida on the shoulder. Brilliant. The entrance exam for UA is in 10 months, and in that time, I want you to clear this beach of trash. Young Midoriya, will you help as well? Said All Might. Deku shrugged and walked to the barrier overlooking the beach. Moving some of this stuff could be a good workout, but you could just get just as much in the gym. But I guess it was for the good of the public. I'll help, said Deku. All Might smiled. Shall we get started? Asked All Might. The three of them walked over to the beach and began moving the trash. Over the next few months, Iida grew massively. His body became much more toned and strong. After about 4 months, he had completely cleared the beach, and Iida was ready for one for all. All Might walked down to the two boys who were sat on the beach. Good work, you two. Now, Iida, I think it's time, said All Might. Iida stood up and bowed his head. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down, said Iida. I know you won't, said All Might. All Might pulled out a hair out of his head and handed it to Iida. Eat this, said All Might. Iida looked at All Might confused. To inherit one for all, you have to swallow some of my DNA, said All Might. Iida took the hair from All Might and didn't eat it. What's wrong? Asked All Might. Iida turned to Deku. Are you sure you don't want it? With your body you'll be unbeatable, said Iida. I'm sure. I'm going to be the first quirkless hero, said Deku. Iida nodded and swallowed the hair. Good. You'll feel the effects in a few hours. It will increase your strength and will increase the power of your quirk, said All Might. Iida bowed to All Might again. Thank you for this honour, All Might, said Iida. Time from then on flew. Every day after school, Deku and Iida would go down to the beach and would train, testing the limits of Iida's new power. They found that he could control around 5% without hurting himself, and his quirk had seen a massive improvement. The remaining months passed by, and it was finally time for the entrance exam for UA. The two friends walked into the massive school. You ready? Asked Deku. Yeah, I'm ready. What about you? Asked Iida. Absolutely, said Deku. Deku clenched his fist. At that moment, Bakugo walked past. Noticing Deku, he turned to look at him. Deku, what are you doing here if you're quirkless? Said Bakugo. Deku took a step forward, but Iida blocked him. I don't know who you are, and frankly I don't care, but I would like you to move along, said Iida. Bakugo scoffed and walked off. Deku gritted his teeth. Thanks for stopping me. It won't be a good start of the exam if I hit him, said Deku. Knowing he'll have to sit out the exam so he can recover, said Iida. Iida and Deku laughed as they got ready for the exam. They stood before massive concrete doors that marked the entrance of the exam area. Deku looked over to Iida, giving him a thumbs up. Iida nodded back. Deku took a deep breath as the doors opened. Begin, yelled Present Mike. Everyone sprinted away. The first robot was turned to dust by Iida. Deku ran over to another one, sliding under its arm and tearing out its spine. He then kicked off the body, landing it on another robot. Deku reached down its neck and tore out a massive wad of wires. As the robot fell, Deku calmly stepped off. How did he move so smoothly? Asked some of the other students. 2 more robots came around the corner and Deku cracked a smile. Finally, I can cut loose, said Deku. Deku grabbed the arm of the first robot, using it to swing around, bringing his heel hard into the robot's eye, taking its head off. He kept the momentum going and launched towards the other one, crushing its head with an axe kick. Deku continued destroying robots. He was loving this. It had been a while since he had an opponent he could go all out against. 3 robots came round the corner and Deku clicked his neck. Yes, more. Bring me more, said Deku. Deku took a deep breath and punched through the chest of the lead robot. He tore out its power core and it flopped to the floor. The other 2 lunged at Deku. Calmly, Deku tore off the downed robot's arm and beat the other 2 with it. Deku walked off, looking for a next opponent, but then the massive 0-point robot was released. Deku stood in front of the hulking body and Iida ran to his side. What are we going to do? Asked Iida. Deku saw that someone was trapped underneath the rocks and were in the path of the robot. Deku patted Iida on the back. The big one's all yours, buddy. I'll go get the girl, said Deku. Iida scoffed. Charging up one for all his engine, Iida prepared to attack. His body sparked with a silver lightning and his engines glowed red with heat. Suddenly he shot forward. Like a cannonball he accelerated towards the massive robot. The ground splintered and cracked with each step. When Iida was within range he jumped high in the air and came down with a devastating axe kick. It sliced through the front of the robot, killing it. Iida walked out of the rubble, panting. Meanwhile, Deku had run over to Uraraka. "Lay still, I'm here to help," said Deku. "I'm stuck," said Uraraka. "Don't worry, I'll get you free," said Deku. Deku looked back and saw that her leg had been crushed by a large chunk of building. Taking a deep breath, Deku focused. He saw cracks through the rock. "Don't move." Before she could respond, Deku used precision strikes to shatter the rock, freeing her. "How did you do that? What's your quirk?" asked Uraraka. Deku didn't have time to reply, as now the defeated robot was beginning to fall towards them. Deku grabbed her hand and ran out of harm's way. When they were clear, Deku let go of her. "Sorry about that," said Deku. Deku walked away as he still had time to get more points, but Uraraka stopped him. "What's your quirk?" she asked. Deku took a second to reply, but finally spoke up. "I don't have one. I'm quirkless," said Deku. Uraraka was shocked. Then how?" asked Uraraka. Deku didn't reply. He ran off as he had seen another robot that wasn't defeated. A few moments later the Saxon sounded, and the exam ended. Deku and Iida walked out of the arena laughing and chatting with each other. "Yeah man, I saw your kick. It was insane. But you'll need to work on your form. Wanna go over that after this?" asked Deku. "How are you not tired?" asked Iida. "Practice," said Deku. Iida and Deku laughed. A few people watched them leave. "What is it with those two? The tall one was insanely fast, and the jacked one, he was just using his bare hands the whole time," said the students. "I heard him say to that girl that he was quirkless," said another one. "Nah, that's impossible. Did you see what he was doing? He punched through metal," said the student. Deku heard that last bit and smiled to himself. A few days later, Deku was doing press-ups in his room when his mum knocked on his door. "Honey, there is a letter for you. I think it's from UA," said Inko. Deku grabbed the letter and tore it open. A hologram of All Might began to play. "Hello, young man. It's been my honor to announce that you have been accepted into UA." Deku smiled as the message continued. "You amazed all of us. You got 42 villain points, which is a very commendable score. However, that was not the only category. There were also hero points. These are given by a panel of judges, and they saw how you saved that girl. For your act of heroism, they have given you 35 hero points, bringing your total to 77. This puts you joint second place. Congratulations, young Midoriya." The message ended, and Deku threw his fist into the air. He immediately picked up his phone and called Iida. "Hey, what's up?" said Iida. "Have you got your results yet? Mine just came," said Deku. "No, I haven't." Iida was cut off by a knock at the door. They just arrived. Hang on, I'll open them." Deku heard Iida open the envelope. An unmistakable voice of All Might began to play. "Young Iida, congratulations on passing the exam. You did exemplary well. In fact, you earned the highest marks out of anyone with 65 villain points." Deku's eyes went wide as he heard that. "That's so awesome. But there was also another category that you were also judged on. Your heroic actions. These are seen by a panel of judges, and they saw how you dealt with the robot whilst young Midoriya got that girl to safety. For your act of exemplary heroism, they have awarded you 25 hero points. This puts your total at 90 points. Congratulations, young Iida." The message ended, and Deku could almost hear Iida's jaw hit the floor. You heard all that, right?" said Iida. "Yep, you did amazing. 90 points? Wow. I only got 77, said Deku. "You got 77? Sorry, I'm still amazed that you can do so much without a quirk," said Iida. Deku smiled down the phone. "I can't wait to begin," said Deku. The next day, Deku and Iida walked into their new class. Immediately, Deku locked eyes with Bakugo. Bakugo's eyes went wide. "How the hell did he get in?" said Bakugo. Someone tapped Deku on the shoulder, and Deku turned around. "Thanks for saving me back then. I appreciate it," said Uraraka. "It's okay," said Deku, smiling. Deku took his seat as Aizawa walked in. "Hello everyone. You can call me Mr. Aizawa, and I will be your homeroom teacher. Now, everyone put on these gym uniforms and meet me outside in 10 minutes. "Excuse me, sir, but what about the opening ceremony?" said Iida. Aizawa activated his quirk, silencing the room. Deku looked around confused as he hadn't felt anything. This is UA, and at UA, we run things a bit differently. I'm allowed to run my class how I like. This includes expulsion. So, meet me outside in 10 minutes, said Aizawa. The class gulped as Aizawa walked out. Outside, Aizawa was preparing several events to test the new students. In the ball throw, Deku did alright, scoring 100 meters. However, in the other events, Deku excelled. In events like push-ups and sit-ups, Deku was the best in class, and in grip strength, Deku was only beaten by Shoji. By the end of all the tests, Aizawa looked at his phone confused. He was amazed that a boy without a quirk could do so well. All the students set off. Deku and Iida began to make their way to the train station when someone shouted at them from behind. It was Uraraka. "Hey guys, are you going to the station?" said Uraraka. "Yes, we are. Care to join us?" said Iida. "Sure. Oh, Iida, I need to thank you for taking out that massive robot," said Uraraka. "No worries. And anyway, it was Midoriya who saved you," said Iida. Uraraka looked over at Deku and smiled hard. She's cute," said Deku internally. "Midoriya, how did you break that rock from before with just your hands?" said Uraraka. "I hit it in the right spot," said Deku. Uraraka and Iida laughed at this, confusing Deku. "I wasn't joking," said Deku internally. The next day, the students were waiting for class to begin when the door was thrown open and All Might rushed in. "I am here," said All Might. The students cheered, but All Might quickly quieted them down. "Young heroes, today we'll be doing our first combat training. Please meet me in Sight Gamma in 10 minutes, in your hero uniforms." 10 minutes later, the entire class was gathered and All Might could continue the lesson. "This will be a simple situation. A 2v2 match. One team being the heroes, and the other team being the villains. The villains will be hiding a bomb in this building, and the hero's job is to defeat the villains and disarm the bomb. First team will be Midoriya and Uraraka versus Bakugo and Iida." Deku turned to Iida, smiling, then glanced over at Bakugo. Bakugo was glaring at him. Deku clenched his fist and got ready. The villains went in, and then 5 minutes after, the klaxon sounded and they headed in. "Leave Bakugo to me," said Deku. "But isn't he really strong?" "I can back you up," said Uraraka. "No, I can handle him. The bigger threat is Iida, and we won't be able to focus on Iida if Bakugo is still active. Knowing both of them, Iida is guarding the bomb, and Bakugo stormed off looking for us," said Deku. As if on cue, Bakugo leapt around the corner, firing a massive blast at the two. Deku smiled. He spun past the blast and slammed Bakugo into the ground. "Uraraka, go!" said Deku. Uraraka ran off, leaving Deku and Bakugo alone. "I heard you coming. I was talking, giving you a false sense of safety." Bakugo jumped to his feet, getting into a fighting stance. Deku laughed and got into his own. "Is that really the stance you want to take?" said Deku. Before Bakugo could reply, Deku brought his foot into Bakugo's ribs, sending him to the floor. "Well, that was stupid, wasn't it? You left yourself wide open," said Deku. Bakugo looked up at Deku and smiled. Suddenly, Bakugo blasted him with a massive blast. Deku jumped back, and only his clothes were damaged. "Haha, you're still weak, Deku. Just like when we were kids. Weak, quirkless Deku," said Bakugo. Deku clenched his fists and charged at Bakugo. Bakugo countered by blasting at Deku, but he evaded by sliding underneath it. Deku slid towards Bakugo. Spinning, he took out his legs. Bakugo fell face first onto the ground. Deku jumped to his feet and walked over to Bakugo. Bakugo flipped onto his back, blasting Deku straight into the chest. Deku was flung down the corridor. He flipped backwards, landing on his feet against the wall. Deku jumped to the floor and sprinted towards Bakugo. As Deku approached, Bakugo activated his glove's stored power. Pulling back the trigger, he fired it towards Deku like a wall of flame. "I need to dodge," said Deku. Deku sped up, heading straight for the blast. He jumped at the last moment, landing with his feet against the wall next to him. He jumped off again, barely dodging the massive blast and slamming into Bakugo's chest. Bakugo didn't fall, however. He grabbed Deku's hair and pulled back a fist to punch him. Deku grabbed hold of the arm holding him and twisted it hard. There was a loud cracking noise as Bakugo's arm tore out of the socket. He fell to the ground, wincing in pain. Deku knelt down beside him. "I've been thinking about this day for years. All the pain you put me through. You aren't fit to be a hero. You're just a selfish, self-centered bully who believes that just because you are strong, he is owed the world," said Deku. Bakugo lashed out in rage, trying to grab Deku with his other hand. Deku caught it, twisting the hand around. Bakugo writhed in pain. You called me weak before. You were right. I was weak, so thank you. You drove me to become the strongest version of myself. Deku pulled back a fist. Now, try and call me weak, said Deku. Deku punched Bakugo in the face. Then again, and again, harder and harder, hit after hit, landing with a sickening thud. Deku's bloody knuckles pounded in Bakugo's skull. Call me weak again, I dare you! All Might screamed down the microphone, but it fell on deaf ears. Do it! Call me weak! I'm not weak anymore! I'm not! You won't hurt me anymore! Never again! Yelled Deku. Deku screamed from the bottom of his heart as he raised his fist again. However, it was grabbed. Deku looked over to see that All Might had grabbed his fist. Behind him was a torn-out wall. This is over. Get up now, said All Might. Deku got to his feet and looked down at his hands and at Bakugo. Deku immediately fell to his knees. Tears streamed out of his eyes and he pounded his fist into the ground. Oh God, what have I done? I didn't mean for this to happen, said Deku. All Might radioed Iida and Uraraka and told them that the fight was over and that they should go outside. Bakugo was taken to the nurse's office for healing and Deku was sent to the principal. Dear God, what happened to him? Said Recovery Girl. Recovery Girl kissed Bakugo, healing him completely. Luckily there was no permanent damage. Bakugo didn't get out of bed though. He just laid there thinking. Was Deku right? Was he unfit to be a hero? Meanwhile, Deku had arrived at the principal's office. Deku and All Might walked inside. Nezu had his back to the door and was looking out the window. Sit, said Nezu. Deku sat down. Explain yourself immediately, said Nezu. Deku bowed his head. I lost control. I let my emotions control my actions, said Deku. What is your past with Bakugo? Said All Might. He used to bully me when I was a child. That's what started me on the path I am now. He would say such cruel things about how I'm weak because I'm quirkless. Now, after all these years, I see him, and he hasn't changed, said Deku. Nezu sighed. You won't be expelled. However, Nezu turned to face Deku. He was noticeably angry, which looked weird on his animal face. One toe out of line. One slip up. You even breathe in the wrong way, and you are out of here. I am also instructing you to go to the school's counselling services. Until you do that, you won't be allowed to continue your lessons, said Nezu. Deku bowed his head. Now, go, said Nezu. Nezu turned as Deku and All Might walked out the door. Young man? Deku stopped and looked at the principal. I believe that you could become a great hero. Deku bowed to the principal and left the room. The next day, Deku walked into class. The atmosphere was different. Everyone looked at him with disgust or fear, even Iida. A few moments later, Bakugo walked in. Deku turned to look away, but something caught his eye. Something was different about Bakugo. He usually carried himself like he was the king of the world, but today his head was low. Deku's head sank. He said everything he wanted to say to Bakugo, but definitely not in the way he wanted to say it. Okay, he wanted to beat him up, sure, but not to that point. He went too far. He lost control. Deku gulped and stood up. Swallowing his pride, he walked over to Bakugo's desk. The entire room gulped. Everyone thought he was going to kick off again. Bakugo looked up at Deku, confused. After a few moments of eye contact, Deku bowed to Bakugo. I'm sorry for what happened. I lost control, and as a result, I put your safety in jeopardy. Deku raised his head and walked back to his seat. The entire room was in shock. End of chapter 2. My throat is just impaced.